Welcome to my lesson on how to play the main keyboard riffs and the keyboard solo from the song Jump on the guitar. For those of you that have seen my cover version of the song Jump, wherein I perform all of those keyboard parts on the guitar alongside with the guitar parts, you'll notice that I do my best for the most part to play everything note for note in terms of replicating the keyboard parts. And occasionally I'll go off and do my own thing for fun, and I'll show you how I do that too. If you don't know how to read tablature, you might have a little difficulty following the lesson. But what I'm going to do here at the beginning is I'm going to give you a very quick, brief overview on how to read tablature or tabs to get you going. And later in the future I'll have a more comprehensive lesson. But what I show you here should be enough for most people with a brain larger than a chimpanzee to follow along.
No offense intended to any chimps that may be watching.
So the first thing you need to know about tablature is that every line represents a string. You'll see there are 6 lines which correspond with the 6 strings on a guitar. The line on the very bottom is the low E string. The line on the very top is the high E string. And every line in between represents those strings in between. And you may wonder, well, why is the low string on the very bottom? Well, it is the lowest sounding string, right? But also, it seems logical because when you're looking down at the neck of a guitar, you'll see that the lowest string, the string is closest to you, is the low E. So it's almost like when you're looking at the lines on the tablature, you're looking down on a guitar neck. And the numbers that you see on the tablature, those represent where you place your finger on the fretboard. For example, the number 5 on the G string, you would simply press down on the 5th fret of the G string. Pretty simple, right? So in this next sequence of notes here, you can see I'm going to press down on the 5th fret of the G string, followed by the 6th fret of the B string, followed by the 5th fret of the E string. You always read left to right. Now when you see 3 notes and they are vertically aligned, that is straight up and down with each other, that means you play those notes at the same time. So we take those notes we just played, and we play them all at the same time in this, according to this next notation. Pretty simple, right? So those are the basics of tablature. I'm going to show you a few more things that you should know that will help you with this particular set of tabs coming up. When you see the initials PM, that means palm mute. So for example, in this next notation here, we're fretting at the 8th fret of the low E string, and we're playing it 4 times palm muted. Next, you see those squiggly lines up on top? That's a vibrato. And as you can see, that was the 5th fret of the G string we just played out. In the next example, we can see the letter P underneath the tablature lines, and then you see this little rounded little line on top of some of the numbers. What that represents, those two things together, the P is a pull-off. So what we're showing here is we're fretting the 10th fret of the E string, and we're pulling off to the 7th fret of the E string. Now if you don't know what a pull-off is, then you're probably not ready for this lesson. Next, you'll see a similar type of notation, but in H, and that's a hammer-on. So here we're fretting at the 5th fret of the G string and hammering on the 7th fret. And sometimes you'll have hammer-ons and pull-offs consecutively, and that line on the top, that rounded line, it'll run the entire course of notes. So for example, in this next one, we're playing the 5th fret of the G string, hammering onto the 7th fret, and pulling off to the 5th fret. All in one picked movement. That's why the line goes all the way across the top of all the notes. Next, you see a T down below. That's a tap, a finger tap. So in this next example, we play the 5th fret, the G string, hammer on the 7th fret, tap on the 12th fret. And the last tablature notation that I want to show you is a slide. And you can see in this example the initials SL down below, and then a line that goes from the 5th fret to the 7th fret on that G string. That's a slide. So those are some of the basics of tablature that should get you through this song. And again, in the future, I will put together a more comprehensive lesson on tablature, which will go into more detail on some of the other symbols and notations that you commonly see with tablature. So the first section is what I call the main keyboard riff from the song. And not only is it played in the intro, but it's played during the verse and the choruses, so you get a lot of mileage out of learning this one. Here I'm going to play it slowly for you. Notice that I don't use my pick during this part. I actually will pluck the strings with my fingers, which I find gives it more of a, I wouldn't say keyboard sound, but I think it fits better than trying to strum the chords.
Here's the main keyboard riff, played slower.
Then you have the other keyboard riff that kind of occurs 3 times in the song, where you go up here to the 22nd fret and cover both the G and the B strings to start. Now here is a variation on the main riff that I'd like to show you that I use in my cover part of the time, which I actually find sounds better on an electric guitar with a lot of distortion, because playing those chords before, there's just sometimes a little bit of unintentional dissonance and things going on with those types of chords with distortion. So the way I'm about to show you is a way that you might want to consider playing it. If you use a lot of distortion, or maybe if you want to play it live, you may like this way better. I definitely like it better myself. It goes like this. And you'll notice that I use the low C note as an anchor so I can do some palm muting and make it sound a little bit heavier too.